Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources via the internet, with pay-as-you-go pricing. Instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access technology services such as computing power, storage, and databases on an as-needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. Organizations of every type, size, and industry are using the cloud for a wide variety of use cases, such as data backup, disaster recovery, email, virtual desktops, software development and testing, big data analytics, and customer-facing web applications. For example, healthcare companies are using the cloud to develop more personalized treatments for patients. Financial services companies are using the cloud to power real-time fraud detection and prevention. And video game makers are using the cloud to deliver online games to millions of players around the world. With cloud computing, your business can become more agile, reduce costs, instantly scale, and deploy globally in minutes. Cloud computing gives you instant access to a broad range of technologies so you can innovate faster and build nearly anything you can imagine. From infrastructure services such as compute, storage, and databases, to Internet of Things, machine learning, data analytics, and much more. You can deploy technology services in a matter of minutes and get from idea to implementation several orders of magnitude faster than before. This gives you the freedom to experiment and test new ideas to differentiate customer experiences and transform your business, such as adding machine learning and intelligence to your applications in order to personalize experiences for your customers and improve their engagement. You don't need to make large upfront investments in hardware and overpay for capacity you don't use. Instead, you can trade capital expense for variable expense and only pay for IT as you consume it. With cloud computing, you access resources from the cloud in real time, as they're needed. You can scale these resources up and down to grow or shrink capacity instantly as your business needs change. Cloud computing also makes it easy to expand to new regions and deploy globally in minutes. For example, Amazon Web Services has infrastructure all over the world, so you're able to deploy your application in multiple physical locations in just a few clicks. Putting applications in closer proximity to end users reduces latency and improves their experience. No matter your location, size, or industry, the cloud frees you from managing infrastructure and data centers so you can focus on what matters most to your business.
Have you ever taken a minute to gaze up at the clouds? You might see a dog, a dinosaur, or your data. Okay, your data isn't actually stored in a cloud in the sky, but it's easy to think so when there's so much talk about cloud computing. So how does the cloud work? The cloud is a global network of servers around the world acting as one massive hard drive. Every time you sign into your Gmail account, watch a show on Netflix, or open a file from Dropbox, you're using the cloud. Before the cloud, you might have backed up your documents, photos, or music to an external device like a CD-ROM or to your computer's hard drive. Now you can back up all of that information to the cloud. When I back up my iPhone to the cloud, my files are sent to servers in Apple's data centers all around the world. I can access those servers by connecting to the internet. So even if I lose or break my phone, not that it's ever happened before, that data isn't lost forever. There are a few obvious benefits to consumers from the cloud besides giving you peace of mind if you lose your phone. You can access your data anytime, anywhere if you're connected to the internet. And you don't have to worry about using up all of your storage on your hard drive, meaning you might not have to pay as much for a device that comes with a ton of storage. Businesses are also benefiting big time from cloud computing. It's estimated worldwide revenue from the cloud will exceed $200 billion in 2019. That's up from $145 billion just 2 years ago. You've probably heard of the two biggest names in the market, Amazon Web Services, known as AWS, and Microsoft Azure. IBM, Google, and Alibaba are also big players when it comes to providing cloud services. It's not just big tech moving business into the cloud. Smaller companies are buying in too as a way to grow their businesses. Just think, instead of having to buy all of this hardware to back up your data, You can store an unlimited amount of information online. Many cloud services are based on a subscription pricing model. That means customers pay, for example, a monthly fee for cloud services, and they can scale up or down as needed. And cloud providers are cashing in. AWS accounts for roughly 12% of Amazon's quarterly sales, but it generates more than half of the company's operating income. Before we get too excited about the cloud, let's take a step back and look at some of the risks. One obvious concern: if all of our data is online, what happens when the internet goes down? That's what happened in 2013 when an AWS outage took down Instagram, Vine, and Airbnb. Cyber attacks are another big risk, with research showing around 1/5 of all files in the cloud contain sensitive data. Finally, it can be tough for consumers and businesses to switch between different cloud companies. I might have a hard time syncing my iCloud and Google Drive accounts. That can give some big companies that are already making big money on the cloud a lot of power over our data. Hey everyone, it's Elizabeth. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know if you have any other ideas for CNBC Explains, and leave us any ideas in the comment section. Be sure to check out all of our other videos over here. See you later.
IBM, Google, Microsoft, all are making big bets on cloud computing. That's for good reason. Research firm Gartner forecasts public cloud revenues to exceed $260 billion in 2020. For years, Amazon's AWS led the market, but that lead is starting to slip as other firms make moves to bolster their cloud computing offerings. In October, Microsoft surprised onlookers when it won the US military's JEDI cloud contract. It could be worth $10 billion over 10 years. Weeks later, Amazon filed a protest of this decision to the US Court of Federal Claims. In July, IBM spent $34 billion to acquire Red Hat and boost its cloud business. So, why are tech firms going to battle for cloud services? To understand, you've got to know the basics.
Well, like any market that grows, it's strong because it offers a value proposition to people that they find attractive, and so they shift their spending.
Cloud computing, at its core, is about changing the way that businesses manage data. Everything done online, shopping, video, texts, it all takes data. The data is processed in behind-the-scenes computers called servers. Managing that equipment takes time, energy, and money. When a business moves to the cloud, it's really just outsourcing. In other words, tech firms like Amazon handle some IT services so businesses can focus on what they do best. Startups who use a cloud provider won't have to spend as much on a custom data center. They can use resources from a third party. In-house IT has to maintain enough server space to account for peak demand. That could mean that your company has a bigger data center than it needs on a consistent basis. Instead, cloud computing lets companies pool their resources. The companies use as many servers as they need and only pay for what they consume. Companies that use the cloud can benefit from the remote management of data in places like Ashburn, Virginia. Amazon, IBM, and others host some of their data centers in less populated areas like this. Both energy and land can be cheaper here than, say, a city center. You even see groups like Facebook and the NSA opening private data centers in small towns in Utah. There's potential for lower costs. The views aren't bad either. Cloud computing is tougher for some businesses than others. In the years after the launch of AWS, businesses like Netflix, Lyft, and Slack launched products with intense IT demands. They were a natural fit for cloud computing. Some companies who are moving to the cloud today are bigger and are in more regulated industries like health and finance. They're companies like JP Morgan, which operates under strict standards from regulators like FINRA. In 2017, Dana Deasy was their Chief Information Officer. At the time, he moved portions of the financial giant's data to the cloud. His next task will be even more formidable: do the same for the Defense Department.
So I've mentioned we have a need for an enterprise cloud. So we have massive compute capability where we can start to store our data in a more common way and make it accessible.
The multi-billion Joint Enterprise Defense Initiative is supposed to centralize the military's technology and reap gains in innovation. Getting there will mean untangling years of different IT systems. That will take time, money, and expertise, which is why Microsoft's potential win is so significant. Amazon is no longer the only big name in cloud computing. Microsoft's Azure Cloud Service was announced 3 years after Amazon AWS took an early lead. More than a decade has passed, and AWS still dwarfs Azure in revenues. But more deals are on the horizon.
The cloud markets are still relatively small, so their growth rate naturally is going to be higher. And we do see that growth rate coming down slightly over time as the cloud markets get bigger. But the strong growth rates are still driven by the fact that people prefer cloud models over the traditional models for a lot of their workloads.
Which is why you see the largest firms in tech betting big on the cloud. Billions of dollars hang in the balance.
My head's been in the cloud. Bet you've been there too. But where is this cloud, that enigmatic entity storing our data on the internet? David Pogue of Yahoo Finance knows and tells all in our Sunday morning cover story.
These days, you can't walk through an airport, read a magazine, or open a computer without seeing ads for the cloud.
The cloud, where everyone can access everything they save from anywhere they are.
The ads clearly suggest that the cloud is desirable, but what they don't say is what the cloud is. Well, here's the basic idea. In the beginning, we all kept our own stuff on our own computers. In the new world of the cloud, though, your computer files don't have to be on your computer. They can be stored out on the internet, alongside everyone else's, in huge centralized buildings called data centers. Your computer or phone can then fetch your files on the spot, wherever you happen to be. Now, you may have encountered the cloud as a synchronizing service. For example, Apple's iCloud service. If I edit this photo on my Apple laptop, maybe make it black and white, maybe crop in on it, a couple of seconds later, I'll see the exact same changes show up on that photo on my Apple phone. Now, these two devices are not directly connected. Instead, that data made an intermediate hop. In a fraction of a second, it comes here to a massive data center, and then it returned to the phone. Most of the time, though, you use the cloud without knowing it, because most of those cloud data centers exist to serve companies.
So it could be retail, it could be real estate, healthcare, life sciences, oil and gas, everything from small initial startups right through to the very, very largest enterprises.
Matt Wood is a general manager at Amazon Web Services, or AWS. It's by far the biggest cloud service company in the world, bigger than its next 14 competitors combined. So all of these industries, all of these companies are hiring AWS to do what?
Let's say you're a brewery. They want to brew beer. They don't want to manage computers. They want to brew beer. They don't want to be going through the expense and the upfront cost and all the complexity of managing these large amounts of computers.
What you're saying is that cloud companies like AWS are basically renting computers, storage, power, security, all the stuff that technicians would have normally had to do on site, right?
That's right, yeah. And so today, very large organizations such as GE, Shell, Philips, Netflix, all run on top of AWS.
If you'd like to see what the cloud looks like, all you have to do is visit a data center, like this one belonging to Raging Wire in Virginia. But good luck getting in.
This is a retinal scanner, and this one's kind of interesting because this one's smart enough to know whether my eyeball is alive or not. So that means you can't take another eyeball and hold it up to here.
Well, darn, because I was sort of hoping to kill you and sneak in.
It's not going to work here.
Fortunately, marketing director Jim Leach agreed to give me a tour.
Oh, this is called a man trap. Man trap. And the secret here is that one door has to close and lock before the other door can open.
Once you get past the concrete barriers, the armed guards, the retina scanner, the man trap, and 9 password-protected doors, you find out what's inside a data center. Just racks and racks and racks of powerful computers. This is the internet.
This is the internet, this is the cloud. Basically, in this room, ballpark, there's about 3 million websites running right now.
For security reasons, they'll never tell you whose websites. But every site and app you've ever heard of, Facebook, Twitter, Netflix, Uber, Airbnb, the New York Times, even CBS News, lives in data center cages like this one.
All right, I gotta ask, what happens in a power failure?
It's backed up by batteries that can run the entire facility for about 10 minutes while we turn on these massive generators that can run continuously.
This data center is in Loudoun County, Virginia, which turns out not to be much of a surprise.
70% of all web traffic on a daily basis from the world goes through a Loudoun County data center.
Come on!
70%.
Buddy Reiser is the county's head of business development. He's helped turn Loudoun County into the largest concentration of data centers in the world, 10 million square feet in 70 enormous buildings.
What do the data centers need and how do we provide it? And it comes down to power and water and fiber and workforce and proximity. And I think the other thing you need is plenty of green space to build, because these are really big buildings, as you can see.
But hold on a second. If we're concentrating all of our data into data centers and concentrating most of the data centers into one county, doesn't that make a very tempting target for terrorists? Amazon's Matt Wood isn't worried.
If something does happen, or we have a power event, or there's a flood in one specific location, that data is held redundantly in other locations as well. So
I don't mean to give anyone ideas, but let's say I figured out that one of these unmarked buildings was an AWS data center, and I blew it up. Are you saying that it's so backed up and redundant that probably you wouldn't notice?
yeah, you wouldn't notice. I mean, we might be a bit upset, but we wouldn't notice.
Okay, so the cloud offers speed, security, flexibility, and savings to the world's businesses. But that doesn't mean it's flawless.
A really obvious example is that the cloud uses a massive amount of power.
Tung-Wei Hu is a University of Michigan professor and author of A Prehistory of the Cloud.
Greenpeace calculated that if you added up all these data centers, they would be the 5th most power-hungry country in the world. They're idle 96% of the time, and the reason is because they're waiting for that.
What are?
Data centers are just computers sitting around doing nothing for 96% of the time. And that's because they're waiting for a spike in traffic. They're waiting for the next music video to go viral. It's those exceptional moments which they have to build a capacity for it. But most of the time, nothing really happens on the internet besides a lot of cat videos.
And then there's all the secrecy.
We don't know anything about what Amazon or Google really does with our data. We have to take their word for it. In fact, if anything, we sign away half of our rights to these data because the cloud is this strange way of letting the companies decide what happens to the data that you have.
But even Professor Hu admits that the cloud is here to stay. Amazon's AWS is on track to make $16 billion this year, dwarfing the part of Amazon that most people know, the part that sells books and things. AWS is growing at 40% a year, and Loudoun County can't build data centers fast enough. Buddy Reiser says there are 7 new ones under construction right now.
And how long will it take them to build that?
Probably under 2 years.
Are you saying that this kind of construction is being built to anticipate the demand a couple years from now, or is there already enough demand to fill this?
This is 100% leased already. I mean, it's not getting ahead. We're just barely keeping up. There's no empty space in our data centers. By and large, they're all 100% filled.